Have you ever wondered why the same emotional patterns keep repeating in your relationships, even when the people are completely different? Why do certain words, behaviors, or silences affect you so deeply? Why do some people instantly attract you, while others trigger emotions you can't explain? Most people believe relationships are simply about love, compatibility, or communication. But beneath every connection lies something much deeper, an unseen part of yourself that quietly shapes your reactions, expectations, fears, and desires. The people closest to you often become mirrors. They reflect not only your strengths, but also the hidden parts of your personality that you'd ignored, rejected, or buried for years. These hidden aspects don't disappear. Instead, they emerge through conflict, attraction, jealousy, resentment, dependency, and even unconditional love. The greatest relationship lessons rarely come from the other person. They come from discovering the parts of yourself that the relationship reveals. Every emotional trigger carries a message. Every repeated pattern points towards something waiting to be understood. In this journey, you'll discover why your hidden self appears most strongly in relationships, how it silently influences your choices, and what happens when you finally stop running from it. Relationships have a mysterious way of bringing hidden parts of us into the light. In everyday life, you may believe you know yourself well. You know your values, your habits, and the story you tell about who you are. Yet the moment you become emotionally attached to another person, something unexpected begins to happen. Emotions grow stronger, reactions become more intense, and sides of your personality emerge that you rarely see when you are alone. This is because close relationships function like mirrors. They do not simply reflect your outward behavior, they reveal the inner world you have kept, hidden, sometimes even from yourself. Think about the moments when someone's words seem to hurt far more than they should. A small criticism feels like rejection. A delayed text message creates overwhelming anxiety. A disagreement suddenly turns into anger that surprises even you. These reactions often seem to be caused entirely by the other person, but in reality, they are usually connected to something much older. The relationship has simply uncovered emotions that were already waiting beneath the surface. The other person did not create them. They revealed them. This is why two people can experience the exact same situation and respond in completely different ways. One partner may see independence as healthy, while another experiences it as abandonment. One person welcomes vulnerability, while another fears it deeply. The difference is not the event itself, but the hidden emotional landscape each person carries within. Every relationship becomes a stage where these invisible patterns begin to play out. Many people spend years trying to change their partners without realizing that the strongest emotions they feel are often pointing inward. They believe happiness depends on finding someone who never triggers them. But such a relationship does not exist. Every meaningful connection eventually reaches the hidden places within us, because genuine intimacy naturally removes the masks we wear in everyday life. The closer someone gets to your heart, the more likely they are to awaken the parts of yourself that have remained unnoticed. This process can feel uncomfortable because we naturally prefer to see ourselves as consistent and reasonable. When jealousy, insecurity, resentment, or fear suddenly appear, we often blame the relationship instead of asking why these emotions hold such power over us. Yet every uncomfortable feeling offers an invitation to understand ourselves more deeply. Instead of asking, why are they making me feel this way? A more revealing question becomes, what part of me is being exposed through this experience? Ironically, the relationships that challenge us the most often become our greatest teachers. They expose hidden fears of rejection, forgotten childhood wounds, unmet emotional needs, and beliefs we never questioned. Without these mirrors, many of these inner realities would remain invisible for decades. What feels like conflict on the outside is often an invitation to explore the unseen world within. When you begin viewing relationships this way, every emotional moment becomes an opportunity, not merely to understand another person better, but to finally meet the parts of yourself that have quietly influenced your life all along. Have you ever wondered why one particular person captures your attention so completely, while others barely leave an impression? Sometimes the attraction is immediate and difficult to explain. You tell yourself it must be because of their appearance, confidence, kindness, or personality, but often there is something much deeper at work. The qualities that fascinate you most in another person frequently point toward parts of yourself that have never been fully recognized or expressed. Instead of seeing these qualities within, your mind unconsciously projects them onto someone else, making them appear extraordinary. This is why attraction can feel almost magical in the beginning. You believe the other person possesses something that will finally make you feel complete. Perhaps you admire someone who is fearless, because you have spent years hiding your own courage. Maybe you become captivated by someone emotionally expressive because you learned early in life to suppress your feelings. Or perhaps you are drawn to someone independent because you have quietly sacrificed your own freedom to meet everyone else's expectations. What attracts you is often a reflection of qualities waiting to be awakened within yourself. The same principle applies to intense dislike. Sometimes, the people who irritate you the most are displaying characteristics that you secretly reject in yourself. Their confidence feels like arrogance. Their honesty feels offensive. Their emotional sensitivity seems like weakness. These strong reactions are rarely random. They suggest that something inside you has not yet been fully understood or accepted. Instead of recognizing these qualities as part of the shared human experience, you push them away and see them only in others. This unconscious process creates powerful emotional bonds. You may place someone on a pedestal, believing they hold the missing piece of your happiness. In the early stages of love, this projection often feels exciting because it fills your life with hope, passion, and possibility. But eventually, reality begins to appear. The other person reveals ordinary human flaws, and the image you created starts to crumble. What once seemed perfect suddenly feels disappointing. Many relationships end at this stage because people mistake the loss of illusion for the loss of love. Yet this moment offers one of life's greatest opportunities for self-discovery. Instead of asking why the other person changed, you can ask what they awakened within you. The admiration you felt was never meaningless. It was pointing toward qualities your own personality was longing to develop. The disappointment was not simply about them failing to meet your expectations. It was about realizing that no one else can permanently carry the parts of yourself you have neglected. As you become more aware of this process, attraction begins to take on a different meaning. Instead of desperately seeking someone to complete your identity, you start recognizing every powerful connection as a message from your own inner world. The people who enter your life are not only companions on your journey, they are living reflections of your unrealized strengths, hidden desires, unacknowledged fears, and untapped potential. By understanding what draws you so strongly toward them, you begin reclaiming those forgotten parts of yourself, transforming attraction from unconscious dependence into conscious personal growth. Every relationship eventually reaches moments that stir powerful emotions. A simple comment leaves you feeling deeply hurt. A brief silence feels like rejection. A forgotten promise turns into overwhelming anger. On the surface, it seems obvious that the other person caused these feelings. Yet if the same event happened to someone else, they might react very differently. This difference reveals an important truth. Emotional triggers are rarely created in the present moment. They awaken something that has been living quietly beneath the surface for a long time. Imagine touching an old scar. The touch itself is not the source of the injury. It simply reminds the body that the wound already exists. Emotional triggers work in much the same way. They expose unresolved fears, painful memories, and deeply rooted beliefs that have never been fully understood. The relationship becomes the place where these hidden emotions finally demand attention. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to avoid being triggered. They believe peace will come when they find a partner who never disappoints them, never challenges them, and never makes mistakes. But this expectation places an impossible burden on every relationship. No matter how loving another person may be, They cannot prevent every uncomfortable emotion from surfacing. In fact, the deeper the relationship becomes, the more likely it is that hidden emotional patterns will emerge. One of the greatest mistakes people make is treating emotional discomfort as evidence that something is wrong with the relationship itself. While unhealthy relationships certainly exist, not every painful feeling is a warning to leave. Sometimes discomfort is simply revealing a part of yourself that has remained unseen for decades. Fear of abandonment, the need for constant reassurance, difficulty trusting others, or the habit of expecting rejection often develop long before a particular relationship begins. The current situation simply shines a light on them. This realization changes the questions you ask yourself. Instead of immediately thinking, "Why did they make me feel this way?" you begin asking, "Why did this affect me so deeply?" That shift may seem small, but it transforms your entire approach to emotional growth. It moves your attention away from controlling another person's behavior and toward understanding your own inner experience. Of course, this does not mean accepting harmful treatment or ignoring genuine problems. Healthy boundaries remain essential, but even in situations where another person has made a mistake, your emotional response can still teach you something valuable. Every trigger contains information. It points toward beliefs you have carried, fears you have protected, or emotional needs that have remained unspoken. When you stop seeing emotional triggers as punishments and begin viewing them as messages, relationships become powerful opportunities for transformation. Instead of running from every uncomfortable feeling or blaming every conflict on someone else, you become curious about what your emotions are trying to reveal. The moments that once felt like proof of failure begin to serve a different purpose. They become invitations to understand yourself more honestly, heal old wounds more completely, and respond with greater awareness rather than automatic reaction. Over time, the trigger loses its power because the hidden lesson has finally been understood. Have you ever noticed that the faces change, but the story remains the same? You leave one relationship hoping the next one will be different, only to find yourself experiencing the same arguments, the same disappointments, or the same emotional distance. At first, it seems like an incredible coincidence. You may believe you simply keep meeting the wrong people, but when the same emotional patterns appear again and again, it is worth asking whether something deeper is quietly shaping these experiences. Unfinished inner work often reveals itself through repetition, until a hidden emotional pattern becomes conscious. It tends to recreate itself in different forms. You may repeatedly find yourself attracted to emotionally unavailable partners, constantly trying to earn love instead of receiving it freely. You may keep choosing people who need saving because your sense of worth has become tied to being indispensable. Or perhaps every close relationship eventually leaves you feeling abandoned, even when the circumstances are different. These recurring experiences are rarely random. They suggest that an unconscious belief is influencing your choices long before you recognize. The mind naturally seeks what is familiar, even when the familiar causes pain. If someone grows up believing that love must be earned through sacrifice, they may unknowingly feel uncomfortable when love is offered without conditions. If criticism was common during childhood, encouragement may feel unfamiliar, while judgment feels strangely normal. Without realizing it, people often recreate emotional environments that match the beliefs they have carried for years. Familiarity can easily disguise itself as destiny. This is why changing partners alone does not always change the outcome. A new relationship may begin with excitement and hope, but if the same unconscious expectations remain untouched, old patterns gradually return. Different names, different personalities, and different circumstances cannot permanently solve an inner conflict that has never been understood. The external story changes, while the emotional script stays remarkably similar. Recognizing these patterns requires courage, because it shifts the focus inward. Instead of asking why life keeps sending the same kinds of people, you begin asking what these repeated experiences are trying to teach you. This is not about blaming yourself for every relationship problem. Other people are responsible for their own choices and behavior. However, your repeated emotional experiences may still reveal valuable information about what your own beliefs, fears, and expectations. The moment you become aware of a recurring pattern, you gain the opportunity to interrupt it. Awareness creates space between the old automatic response and a new conscious decision. Instead of chasing someone emotionally unavailable, you notice the attraction and question it. Instead of remaining silent to avoid conflict, you choose honest communication. Instead of believing rejection defines your worth, you begin separating another person's actions from your own value. Real transformation does not happen because the world suddenly fills with perfect partners. It happens because you stop repeating unconscious emotional habits that have quietly directed your relationships for years. As your inner beliefs change, the people you choose, the boundaries you establish, and the love you accept begin to change as well. What once felt like an endless cycle gradually becomes a new path, shaped not by old wounds, but by growing self-awareness and emotional maturity. Many people believe that love means finding someone who will heal their loneliness, erase their fears, and finally make them feel complete. This hope is understandable, because we all long to be deeply seen and accepted. But when you expect another person to carry the parts of yourself that you refuse to courage, the relationship becomes a burden instead of a partnership. No one can permanently fill a space that only self-understanding can reach. Lasting intimacy begins when you stop hiding from yourself and start accepting every part of your own inner world. Your hidden side is not made only of fear, anger, jealousy, or insecurity. It also contains forgotten strengths, quiet courage, untapped creativity, healthy ambition, and the ability to love more deeply than you may realize. Throughout life, many of these qualities are pushed aside because they were misunderstood, criticized, or discouraged. Over time, you begin identifying only with the parts of yourself that seem acceptable, while everything else is locked away. Yet the hidden parts never disappear. They continue influencing your choices, emotions, and relationships from behind the scenes. When you begin accepting these hidden aspects instead of denying them, something remarkable happens. You no longer need another person to constantly reassure you of your worth, because you are no longer disconnected from yourself. You stop demanding that others fix emotions you have never taken time to understand. Instead of reacting automatically with blame or defensiveness, you become curious about what your feelings are trying to teach you. This shift creates emotional stability that no external validation can provide. Acceptance does not mean approving every impulse or acting on every emotion. It means acknowledging that these feelings exist without pretending they are someone else's. It's responsibility. Anger can become healthy assertiveness when understood. Fear can become wisdom instead of avoidance. Sadness can deepen compassion rather than becoming lifelong despair. Even qualities you once considered weaknesses may reveal unexpected strengths when viewed with honesty instead of shame. As this inner relationship grows stronger, your outer relationships begin to change naturally. You become less interested in controlling people because you are no longer controlled by unconscious fears. You communicate more honestly because you are not constantly protecting a false image of yourself. You set healthier boundaries because your value no longer depends entirely on someone else's approval. Love becomes an exchange between two whole individuals, rather than a desperate attempt to complete what feels missing inside. This transformation also changes the way you see the imperfections of others. Instead of expecting impossible perfection, you recognize that everyone carries hidden struggles, unspoken fears, and unfinished emotional work. Compassion replaces constant judgment because you understand that every person is fighting battles that may not be immediately visible. This does not mean accepting harmful behavior, but it allows you to respond with greater wisdom rather than automatic resentment. The deepest form of love is not built on illusion or emotional dependency. It